Have you ever felt the pressure to stay positive even when life feels like it's falling apart? Are you avoiding conflicts by claiming to be above it all? I'm bigger than that. I took the higher road. All of those type of statements. Let's have a look at why that could be doing more harm than good. Spirituality should be a tool that helps us heal. However, how can it be hindering our growth? Check out this episode below. Welcome to Life by 8, your blueprint for living the most extraordinary life. I am Rebecca Grugan, your life architect on this journey to designing your ultimate life. If you are ready to level up using values levels, understanding yourself with the energetic blueprint, our 8 pillars to human wellness framework, this is for you. You are in the right place, so let's go. Have you ever faced a tough moment and someone said, just stay positive or everything happens for a reason? Whilst these phrases might sound comforting, they often miss the mark and can even make things worse. Today we're diving deep into the concept of spiritual bypassing, a term that sheds light on how spirituality, when misused, can hinder growth and healing. And why does this matter? Well, let's start with a startling fact. Studies show that avoiding negative emotions increases stress and anxiety over time. True resilience and emotional well-being come from facing, not avoiding, discomfort. By the end of this episode, you'll have a deeper understanding of what spiritual bypassing is, how it impacts your personal growth, relationships, and community, and most importantly, actionable strategies to avoid falling into this trap. If you've ever felt pressured to just be positive when life felt overwhelming, this episode is for you. So what exactly is spiritual bypassing? Well, spiritual bypassing is the use of spiritual beliefs or practices to sidestep unresolved emotional pain, trauma, or psychological challenges. Instead of addressing discomfort, it focuses on avoiding it. The term was first coined by psychologist John Welwood in the 1980s, who observed this pattern amongst individuals in spiritual communities. These days, you can also find it in personal development communities. His work highlighted the tension between true spiritual growth and the temptation to use spirituality as an escape. So what are some of the common traits of spiritual bypassing? 1. Toxic positivity. So insisting on always staying positive whilst ignoring challenges or pain can lead to believing that you just be positive, just lean into it, it's gonna be fine. But what you're doing is you're avoiding and ignoring, putting your head in the sand of the real challenges or the feelings and emotion or pain that you are actually experiencing. And if you're saying this to somebody else, that whole just think positive, just stay positive to somebody else can also be your way of avoiding having to be compassionate or be empathetic with those people around you. So toxic positivity can be a massive hindrance and a way to spiritually bypass and avoid the things that need your attention. Number 2, premature forgiveness. So forgiving without processing the hurt or addressing the issue can be a real source of spiritual bypassing. So in certain religions, forgiveness is a requirement and you'll be forgiven for all your sins, all of those sort of things. But when we believe that we should just be able to forgive somebody or something in the immediate moment after it's occurred, that can be a way that we are avoiding the feeling, the embodiment of the hurt, or to have the conversation or to address the boundary that was crossed. There is the possibility that you are forgiving too quickly. That is another form or way of spiritually bypassing. Number 3 is detachment over engagement. So claiming to be above emotions or relationships to avoid vulnerability. This is a really big one that plays out in the personal development world and something that in the past I am sure I have done. And so when I speak to my students when they come out of NLP training and I talk about how it's important to go into the world, back into your real world, and ensure that you remember that people haven't done the same thing you have. Just because you've just learnt a new skill set or had a transformation doesn't mean that you have a right to talk to them as if they're lesser than you or that you are above them. But when you claim to be above feeling anger, sadness, guilt, shame, all of these things, you start to utilize, or you could be detaching from those emotions, from the fact that your human still experiences these emotions, but the way in which you may be speaking about it has you seeing yourself as above, i.e. dissociating from what's actually happening, so that you can avoid being vulnerable. And in a business situation, as a coach, new coaches can do this a lot, even old ones. But where are you seeing this happen? Are you doing it? Are you detaching from parts in your life after you've learnt new skills because you think the new skills means that you don't have to ever experience those emotions again? So avoiding that vulnerability, that detaching from the emotion, can also be a way of spiritual bypassing. 4, the overuse of spiritual jargon. Phrases like, just raise your vibration. These are used to bypass deeper issues. They almost oversimplify things and issues that people are going through. This is backed by research. So according to a study that's published in the Journal of Positive Psychology, bypassing negative emotions to focus solely on positivity can lead to suppressed emotional processing, increasing feelings of anxiety and disconnection. You see, to truly embody the skills that you've learnt, what's going on for you, authentic healing, it requires engaging with both positive and negative emotions. The key insights of Wellwood's work, the psychologist who coined what spiritual bypassing means, is the avoidance of pain and how avoiding the pain hinders your ability to integrate, embody, and heal completely. So you may have learnt or released, anger. That's a really big emotion that gets processed in a lot of the NLP work that I do. So say you release anger and you have this big transformational breakthrough because of it. The thing is that if you have done that, you've shifted a perspective, but then you avoid feeling anger in the future, then you can utilize the fact that I shouldn't feel anger anymore because I released it back here. That means that embodiment, that integration, that healing can derail, can be undone really quickly. The thing is that you may have processed the anger you had experienced up until that point, but you are still likely to experience anger in the future because you are human. And so that avoidance of any pain, of having to be vulnerable, that hinders your embodiment, that hinders your integration. Another point is that true spirituality embraces both light and shadow. There's no good and bad, wrong or right. It's just and all. And so acknowledging the pain is felt because it's part of your journey is extremely important to embody, to fully integrate what's going on. It's not positive vibes only. It is all of a human being's experience that gets acknowledged and processed and embraced with the same energy as just the good stuff. And so where in your life are you seeing people avoid the dark, the shadow, to stay in the light, to stay in what seems easier? Because if you're avoiding your shadows, if you're avoiding your dark, you are excluding a huge part of who you are. And so instead of seeing good or bad, right or wrong, light and dark, what if you just saw all of it and you acknowledged all of it, all of the feelings, including the pain, and that it's all part of the journey in your healing? Another point is premature transcendence. So this disconnects us from reality and relationships, undermining our growth. So if you think that you are enlightened, if you think you are an enlightened being and you say that, you're probably not. Because the thing is in this ascension, in this transcendence of understanding or making sense of self, of I am, you move more and more away from being anything And so to walk around saying, I'm enlightened, they're this, they're that, they're wrong, they're right, that is spiritual bypassing happening in real time. You can feel like you transcend because you go through these ego deaths and these breakthroughs each time you do a personal development course. It doesn't make you better than anybody else, but it also doesn't mean you transcend or move anywhere. It doesn't mean that you move up an ascension. It may mean that you move sideways or backwards for a period of time so that you can leap forward. It is not a journey of up, up, up. And just because you have the intellectualized knowledge does not mean that you have integrated and embodied the learnings and the healing for that transcendence to actually occur. Transformation, yes. Transcendence, straight away, unlikely. Your nervous system has to be able to heal and to grow to be able to hold more capacity for that transcendence. You can transform. It doesn't mean that you transcend straight away. So how can you identify and address spiritual bypassing in your life? So some signs of spiritual bypassing in yourself. Do you find yourself dismissing your emotions with phrases like, it's all part of the plan? If you're doing that, you are likely spiritually bypassing. It is what it is. Now, there's a place to accept certain things like that, but if you're using that, it's all part of a plan, you may be using that to avoid and dismiss the emotions that you might be feeling in that time. Are you avoiding conflicts by claiming to be above it all? I'm bigger than that. I took the higher road. All of those type of statements can be ways to spiritually bypass actually facing, dealing with, owning your part or taking responsibility of the conflict that you're in. So if you're claiming to be above it all, you're spiritually bypassing. Have you focused only on positivity and light? Or light and love. Love and light. All of those statements. If you're only focusing on the positivity and the light while ignoring what can seem heavy or the uncomfortable feelings or challenges, you are spiritually bypassing. And you are using love and light as a way to do that. The goal here is it's all of it. The dark, the light, the good, the bad, the heavy, the light, all of it. Now, some signs that others may be spiritually bypassing. They dismiss struggles with phrases like, everything happens for a reason. Now, in NLP, I know I use it and some other coaches do, is like, everything happens for us rather than to us. Yes, this can be true. Everything happens for a reason. But if you're using that statement every time, or somebody's using that statement every time, they could be avoiding, they could be using that to spiritually bypass whatever is actually happening for them. They could push you to move on without validating your pain. This can happen in a lot of narcissistic relationships as well. But when it's just, just move on with it. It wasn't that big of a deal. Get on with it. Get on with life. It doesn't have to, you don't have to sleep in today. You don't have to be, feel depressed. You don't have to do all of these. If somebody is pushing you to move on before you have actually validated the pain you're feeling, then they are trying to spiritually bypass what they're feeling, the awkward, the uncomfortability that they're having to express by having to support you through what you're going through. They may overemphasize positivity, and this actually avoids the value of difficult emotions. So there is a movement in the last couple of years around positive vibes only. This can actually impact relationships negatively, because the thing is that people then feel like they can only feel good to be around other people. So then when they feel bad, when they feel deeper, harder, difficult emotions, there's nobody to talk to because everybody wants positive vibes only. It's happening. Our mental health crisis is bigger than it's ever been. And this is because we are using and overemphasizing positivity rather than actually facing and embracing the value that comes when we feel these difficult emotions and processing them the whole way through, so that we can actually embody the lessons, so that we can actually change the stories, transform and transcend the old versions of ourselves. So some strategies to overcome spiritual bypassing. 1, Embrace your emotions. Name what you're feeling without judgment. One of the big pieces of work we do with LB8 is to increase people's understanding of different emotions and how they feel them in their body and how they experience it. So, example, instead of saying I'm fine, practice saying something like I feel frustrated because I wasn't heard in that conversation. Because what you're actually doing is you're validating what you're feeling and you're able to feel the emotion in your body, so the energy in your body, then you are able to communicate and express that. That helps your nervous system stay more regulated, but it also increases your communication about what's going on. And we know that with communication and your nervous system regulated, that you have a strong foundation to build a really amazing life on. Number 2, practice mindful awareness. So use mindfulness techniques to sit with discomfort rather than escape it. An example that I experienced really recently was something happened with my youngest son, Owen, and I discovered something that had happened in Roblox for him, and it sent me into an emotion that was so raw and deep and triggered parts of the old version of me, like 6-year-old, 7-year-old me. And had there been alcohol in the fridge, I probably would have drank it, but I don't drink. But it was just like I don't have many vices, so to escape it, I didn't have anything, but my nervous system just wanted to find something to escape. And what I did was I actually sat with the emotion. So I had my moment of, I don't know what to do with this. I was completely overwhelmed, and I could have escaped it or sat with it and processed it. And what I was really proud of is that I sat with it and I processed how I was feeling about it and was able to get myself to a regulated state where I could then talk about it with Paul, where I could talk it through. But the thing is that in that moment, these moments, you can choose to sit with it and to process it, or you can choose to escape it. And so many of us escape, whether that's scrolling your phone, whether that's drinking alcohol, doing drugs, whether that's sex, whatever it is. What are your vices? What are the things that you are using that are avoiding your ability to sit in the discomfort of an emotion? Changing this changes everything and gives you back what you think is control. So try this. So when you're faced with a challenging moment, close your eyes, take 5 deep breaths in, and name the emotions that arise in this process. I know you're like, oh, another fucking thing. No, your breath does change everything. But what it does is it calms you down and it brings you to this moment, and it allows you to pay attention to the energy in your body and to give it a name. Because when you can give that energy, that emotion, a name, a feeling, you can then process it. You can then go even further into it. Because we can close the loop. When we escape or we suppress, Brené Brown talks about this. We have all these open loops in our body. The goal here is to be able to name the emotion, feel the emotion, and close it off. We close these loops. That's how you get your energy back. Extremely powerful. I know. 5 breaths, slow down, name the emotions that are arising that you are paying attention to in your body. Number 3, acknowledge your shadow. So journaling prompts here are things where you write into the answer of the question. So the question I've got for you that you might want to use is, what are the parts of yourself you often try to hide? Because it's these parts that you are trying to hide that you feel a certain way about and you don't want other people to see it. And you can start to reflect on why they make you feel uncomfortable. For instance, if you try to hide the loud part of you, the laugh that you have, you may then, because you're embarrassed by what people will think of it or you were teased about it when you were younger, if you're hiding this part of yourself, you are rejecting that part. You are stopping yourself from having the chance to experience joy, humor, laughter with your loved ones. But when we can actually write into this and reflect on why we're hiding this, i.e. it's been hidden, that's why we call it the shadow, then you can start to bring your awareness consciously to what's going on and to start that integration process to actually happen so that you start to live your life feeling whole rather than in parts. That's the work that needs to be done. That is why people spiritually bypass, why they avoid the things, because of the work that has to happen in the integration part. Number 4, seeking support. So whether you are working with a therapist or a coach, getting support can help you uncover the patterns of avoidance. A trusted professional, somebody who's been working with people with their shadows, whether it's psychologists, coaches, language patterns, anything. There's so many different ways in which you can find support in this. But having that trusted professional, they can provide you tools that help you navigate the emotional pain you're feeling without bypassing it. So if you think about the last time you faced a challenge, for example, did you allow yourself to feel the anger, the sadness, or the frustration? Or did you just jump straight into reframing it as a positive lesson? The next time that you have a challenge, when that challenge arises, could you pause? Can you give yourself permission to feel it fully before you start to move towards the resolution? Can you allow yourself to go through the entire process, to close off that loop, to integrate that part? Instead of bypassing, allow yourself to pass through. So, what if? What is possible when we stop spiritually bypassing? So much. For instance, your personal growth. Facing your emotions head on builds resilience. Allowing yourself to lean into the emotion that you're feeling instead of trying to find a way to avoid it. This is where the true growth comes from. It comes from sitting in that discomfort so that you can learn from it and you can integrate those lessons into your life so that the pattern is more likely to stop than if you just keep spiritually bypassing and hoping that it'll be over, it'll be different the next time. But the parts need to be integrated. Whether that's now or in 10 years' time, you can bypass for as long as you think you can, but it will keep coming until you process it fully. So instead of avoiding the difficult conversations, for example, you've had a conversation you know you need to have with somebody, you can address them with honesty and vulnerability instead of, yeah, I'm fine, or no, thanks, that's okay. But you really want to ask for the help. You really want to say what you're feeling. You really want to express yourself. Allowing yourself to start to practice this, to be honest with the people around you, to be vulnerable with the people around you. This is something that I have heavily worked on over the last 5 years, and it has been incredibly powerful because in the past I used to get told I had no tact or that I was too blunt or intimidating. Now, I've learned to integrate those parts of allowing myself to be vulnerable and to say how I feel as well and to show more emotion when I'm with people, whether it's on a stage coaching a group or whether it's in a one-on-one setting or if it's with my husband or my children. The honesty's always been there, but what I've learned is how to be vulnerable with that honesty. And that has deepened the relationships and my ability to have hard and crucial conversations with the people around me. And so where in your life can you start to be honest? And where in your life would vulnerability deepen the connections with others? Which leads me to one of the other values, one of the outcomes when you stop spiritually bypassing is those deeper relationships. By validating others' struggles, instead of offering the surface level platitudes, you create space for empathy and compassion and connection. So when someone shares their pain, you can respond with, I'm here for you, rather than rushing to solutions to find the answer to their problem so they don't have to feel that way. Many parents do this with their children. They don't want their children to experience pain or to feel a certain way, so they'll problem solve the situation. But sometimes, a lot of the time, it is just about being there with. And that's why the response of I'm here for you and actually being there for them without jumping into solutions-based thinking can allow that person to actually sit with and in their feelings so that they can process it and still feel that support instead of feeling like a hindrance, like they are a problem, like they are annoying and inconvenience. We want people to feel like they can be themselves and to feel when we are there with them, that they're not on their own. That's going to help so many people process what's going on for them, which in and of itself will help the mental health crisis we're experiencing. And another way is healthier communities. Communities thrive when they embrace the messy and the imperfect. By addressing the challenges directly, we foster these spaces and the genuine healing and transformation that can occur. You see, sometimes we're part of a friendship group or of a sporting team or a community where you feel like you can only show up completely perfect as yourself. And if you're not, then it's not good enough. If you broke a rule, if you did something against, like this happens in gyms, this happens in churches, this happens in so many different types of communities where people are trying to be perfect and people are hiding their imperfections or how they're truly feeling, and they're feeling on their own and there's no way out. That doesn't foster transformation. That doesn't foster genuine healing. And so I wonder, as an example, in the group settings, whether you can start to encourage people to share their victories and their struggles so that you actually create an inclusive and authentic atmosphere. So some of the times, like in the communities and the group settings we talk about, what is something that we're celebrating and what is something that we learned. What did we learn from? And this allows for people to find the thing to celebrate, because there's always something. We're breathing, we're alive. There is always something to celebrate. Even in the moment, it may not feel like it. But it also allows people to share their lessons and the vulnerability with what comes with that. Now, did you notice in what I just said? Just notice how that could be spiritual bypassing in and of itself. When I said there's always a positive to be found, there's always something to celebrate. What if there's not? What if that person cannot see that there is something worth celebrating? This is why in our events and in our community and in our staff meetings, we aim to have both, so that you can celebrate and you can be vulnerable and talk about the lessons you've learned and the things that aren't working for you, so that the safe space for those is inclusive, instead of people feeling like it's only about what's to celebrate. And an example from Wellwood's work, so he emphasized the power of embracing the shadow. He believed that communities flourish when they support the individuals in processing all those aspects of their humanity. So Carl Jung, who's also known for shadow work and the archetypes in more detail, what Wellwood does is he talks about the normalizing conversation. So normalize conversation around struggle and pain so that we collectively grow stronger rather than people feeling isolated. And so where in your life, in your communities, if no one's showing up vulnerable, if people aren't willing to actually say and be honest with how they're feeling, could you be the one who goes first? Could you change that narrative? And if you can't, how is that community still serving you if it is? And if it's not, then to move on and to leave it. So some practical tools and resources: daily reflection exercise. So at the end of each day, jot down 3 emotions you felt and what triggered them. This practice helps build awareness of your emotional patterns, because when we become aware of our patterns, we can acknowledge them, and then we can actually accept them or change them and take the action to do so. Number 2, another resource is to journal the prompts to address avoidance. So there's different prompts that exist, and some of the main ones that I speak about is, what emotions am I avoiding and why? What am I afraid of feeling? How can I approach this fear with compassion? So even just those 3 questions itself, if you were to journal on them regularly, that will help bring you the awareness of those shadows that you might be experiencing and where you may or may not be spiritually bypassing in your own life. And some recommended reading. So Toward a Psychology of Awakening by John Wellwood is a really great read. Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, which explores embracing your whole self. 2 great books if you want to go deeper into understanding what this means for you and how you can embody and shift your patterns so that you stop bypassing. And another resource you can do is affirmation practice. So replace bypassing statements like, it's fine, with affirmations such as, I'm allowed to feel this and I will move through it in time. Those simple changes allowing, what are you allowing yourself instead of rejecting, suppressing, excluding? Changing your words so that you can actually affirm the things that you are allowing and what you are giving yourself permission to feel. So it's been a big one today. We've explored the concept of spiritual bypassing, what it is, how to recognize it, and why addressing it is crucial for authentic growth. So here's my challenge for you. This week, pay attention to how you respond to difficult emotions. Are you addressing them or bypassing them? Write down your observations and share them with someone you trust. I've also created a free journal prompt guide to help you identify and overcome spiritual bypassing in your life. You can check the link in the show notes below. And if this episode resonated, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who is on their own spiritual journey. Remember, true spirituality is about embracing all parts of yourself, the light, the dark, and everything in between. Until next time, take care, keep growing, and living life by 8.